Before I talk about the new remaster of Star Wars Dark Forces by Night Dive Studios, I need to lay out my Star Wars fan credentials so you have context for my opinion. I don't have credentials. First of all, I'm not a Star Wars fan. I like the first two movies, Star Wars from 1977. It's a fun sci-fi fantasy adventure, and I like The Empire Strikes Back. Beyond that, my feelings about the series range from fine but flawed to meh to I hope I never see it again. I liked Super Star Wars on the SNES, that was a fun video game, and that's the only one I've ever played. I never played Dark Forces. I didn't even know it existed until about 5 years ago when I started learning more about boomer shooter history. It looked like Doom, but Star Wars, and that's cool. Nothing wrong with a 90s shooter murdering hundreds of stormtroopers, I guess. So when I got the review code for Dark Forces, I was excited. I finally get to play a piece of FPS history that passed me by. This video is entirely from the perspective of someone with no attachment to the franchise or this particular game. I am unable to talk about what has changed and improved in this remaster because I have no context. I'm coming at this from the perspective of someone playing this remaster of a 30-year-old game for the first time in 2024. And I think that's a valuable perspective to present because there will be many people who come to this remaster as newbies. I found Dark Forces to be pretty fun for the most part. It starts off giving you exactly what you want, bursting onto a base and blowing away a bunch of stormtroopers. It's cute. Even as a non-fan myself, I was able to appreciate how awesome this moment must have been for people in the 90s, getting their first 3D first-person experience of the Star Wars universe they love so much. It must have been a dream come true. While the game may look and feel like Doom, it certainly has its differences. There's a lot more verticality, you can jump, and while you can play old school with keyboard only, using mouse look feels very necessary because you'll end up in a lot of rooms with enemies or turrets far above your view, and if you can't look up to see them, it must be a nightmare. Like Doom, you can aim straight ahead and your projectiles will track vertically, and certain weapons feel much better to use in those situations. The laser guns work pretty well, but the concussion rifle seems to have a mind of its own and ended up being quite unreliable in vertical situations. I was surprised to see how many grenades were dealt out as I played, and I made great use of them around corners, playing the game more like Blood than Doom. I enjoyed tossing grenades into windows to deal with annoying pricks, and mortars into groups. The weapons are generally useful and well defined in their roles. I was happy to see how relevant the blaster stays for the entire game. And once I figured out this game has alt-fire modes, the auto gun became my shotgun, one that can fire a triple blast while firing the automatic primary. Is this the first shooter to have alt-fire modes? The concussion rifle is a badass weapon found later in the game, tracking enemies at very long distances, even hitting multiple targets and doing massive damage. You don't want to use it up close because the explosion will hurt you, and like I pointed out earlier, the vertical tracking is messed up. But it's an interesting tactical weapon. The only weapon I wasn't crazy about was the green plasma launcher. It's just so slow I never found much use for it since I was playing on a difficulty too high to mess around. Maybe there's some function I'm missing. I played Dark Forces on hard, which proved to be a pretty satisfying challenge for a good amount of the experience. Since I'm playing with a mouse instead of just keyboard, it's not nearly as punishing as it would be, but I still had a pretty good time. Around level 4, I started taking deaths, and I had to make better choices. You can choose your difficulty before each mission, and I stuck to hard on every level except Jabba's ship, because I'm not about to punch 3 of these beasts to death. I tried that for a while before giving up, and I'm not ashamed of it. This part is stupid. The checkpoint system is interesting. It's got the Proteus system where respawning saves all your progress, so everyone you killed stays dead, but you have limited lives, and will have to restart the whole level if you run out. I had several level restarts after losing all my lives. What really surprised me about Dark Forces was the level design. It's still a few years before realism started taking over. It's more like the old maze-like Doom maps. But they mix in a good amount of objectives to keep things interesting. It's not just switches and keycards, though there is plenty of that here. Some of my favorite moments were figuring out puzzles that involve arranging different elevators to create pathways between them through the vents, and experimenting with opening and closing doors to find an entrance to the vault. I enjoyed these breaks in the action, and the puzzles were creative and engaging. I like that there are certain moments where you have to use a headlamp or night vision to see in the dark, and this uses your battery. So there's a decision to be made between using a limited resource or using your blaster to illuminate the room with each shot, making things a little scary from time to time. I was even kinda into the story for a while, playing as someone with no real allegiance to any side, formerly working for the Empire, now helping the Rebellion. The first mission being the retrieval of the Death Star plans and delivering them to Princess Leia. So I guess this is the true version of that story, and we can completely disregard Rogue One, right? The game has you discovering the existence of a new kind of Empire soldier, the Dark Trooper, going to the place where materials are mined for the process of creating them, and eventually fighting them near the end of the game. We see several 2D cutscenes, not just of our hero and the rebels, but Vader as well, even though you never come across him yourself. You fight several types of the same basic soldier, super annoying grenade tossers that love to hide up high, flying drones that don't pose much of a threat but the little ball really pissed me off. Turrets are also pretty annoying since vertical targeting can be weird in this game, and the guys with the concussion rifles are so cheap. One of the cheapest enemies I've ever seen. If they target you and you take cover, you still get hit. It's such bullshit, I hated these guys, and not in a good way. Imagine an archvile that's harder to hide from. You're gonna die some cheap deaths, from turrets hiding around corners or just suddenly being stuck against them by going down an elevator. You've got several mines hidden amongst pickups to totally ruin your day. It's essentially this game's version of a Doom monster closet. And if you get close to a mine and set it off, even if you back far away from it, it still damages you. This stuff is very annoying, but it wasn't enough to spoil the experience. The large majority of my time exploring and engaging in combat was pretty fun. While I was playing, I was wondering why certain things hadn't been adjusted for this remaster. I know it's not a remake like System Shock was, it's just the original game now running at a better resolution and widescreen, all that technical stuff. And I'm not saying the game's flaws have to be removed. I think it's annoying that enemy hurtboxes stay active long after they go into their death animation, blocking you from being able to hit enemies behind them. But I understand flaws are part of the charm, and original fans probably don't want to see changes to how the game actually feels, like enemy rebalancing, better targeting, etc. But someone please explain to me why the ice physics were not fixed. When I step on this ice patch, my movement is totally screwed, so much that I literally cannot move. I had to restart the mission several times because I kept getting stuck. I looked it up online and saw a bunch of forum posts about how this is an old bug where higher-end computers would cause the ice to get screwed up. You're not supposed to be unable to move here. This is a known game-breaking bug for years. I was finally able to get past it by looking up where the ice cleats were and then hopping onto the ice and slowly sliding to their hidden location. There's no reason to keep this bug in the game, and it's going to utterly fuck a lot of players. Maybe it was impossible for them to fix, but I hope they tried. There's an achievement for getting the ice cleats, I'm pretty sure they know about this. Beyond that, I've had several crashes when opening up the PDA just to check the mission status, and of course due to the save system, this causes me to restart the entire mission. And for a remaster, there are some annoying omissions. We have a lot of stuff you would expect, higher resolution settings, accessibility options for people that have issues with the flashing HUD, so the studio isn't against making these kinds of changes or additions. So how about a master volume slider so I don't have to adjust both levels every time I change my volume, which I do a lot when I play games? And how about fixing the key binding menu so you can't accidentally bind multiple options to the same key? If I set a weapon to the Q key should no longer be bound to the weapon wheel. It should automatically unbind itself and wait for you to set another key to it. Maybe have a notification that you've left something unbound before exiting the menu. Infuriatingly, the map does not show colored key doors, which makes no sense to me. Would it have been so hard to include a new option that shows where locked doors are on the map so it's actually useful? The last issue I'll bring up is a terrible bug where if you bring up the Steam overlay, your inputs get locked. This happened to me several times because tab is the map button, and it's very common to be holding shift to run and then press tab to check the map. If you do that, it'll bring up the Steam overlay, and now look what happens. I'm stuck running in one direction. I have no idea how I'm fixing this, but I just try to press different directions and bring up the overlay more until I kinda wiggle out of it. And for some reason, I'm unable to turn off Steam overlay. I have it disabled in Steam settings and in the game settings, but it keeps happening. It took a while to learn the patience to never press tab when running. Anyway, despite the bugs and missing menu features, Dark Forces was a fun time. I don't know if this is a great remaster or not. Like I said, I don't have context of the original. But it plays well, it feels authentic, and I had a good time. If you're a fan of the original or you're just looking for a classic experience, I totally recommend it. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this remaster, and I'll see you later.